Welcome to Akhand Vidyashram, the first institute of impeccable wisdom. Let's discuss about periodic table and its beauty of the 7 periods and 18 groups as such. As you see in this picture, the left side you see red color, there's 7 periods in red color as such. There are only 7 because 7 is a unique number, occult number of divine nature as well. But on the other side on top you can see groups. There are 18, which I have divided into first line is only 2. Then next two you have 10 and subsequently 18, 18, 18, 18. So thereby this is 2, 10 and 18 is important as far as groups are concerned and period only 7. Now as you can see in the left side, descending 7 periods. Why? Because this is a universal law. Occult mathematics, divine mathematics centers on 7 alone. Let's understand that first thing clearly. Let's start with the sun, which is the presiding deity of solar system. It starts with the sun, as the picture is very clear. There are 7 horses are the 7 planets which are important, like 7 colors, and what they stand for, starting from sun as such. Let's try to understand that. Now, before I go to that, this is sunlight plays very important role in giving us Agni, the fire, the oxygen. And oxygen is more when we pour water into the plant in the morning. Ultraviolet 6 a.m. will produce more oxygen. Similarly, at 6 p.m., water given to the plants will produce more oxygen. This also shows that it is water which gets converted into oxygen. That's it. Now, same concept is there in Rig Veda itself when it talks about Gayatri Mantra. And I talk about 3 Gayatris, Brahmani Gayatri, morning, Udrani evening and Vaishnavi. Both Brahmani and Rudrani, ultraviolet rate and sunlight, as I told you, when water is poured and Gayatri Mantra is chanted, the plants will produce more oxygen. Now it is also confirmed by the modern science as such. Now we are going to see the colors of light. When white light of the sun passes through the prism, it gets converted into 7 colors, which is Vivgya, starting with red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo and violet. You can see in this picture very clearly. You can see the rainbow also very, very clearly. Now come to the question about the 7 heavens, the 7 days. Starts with the sun, which is Sunday. Moon is a Monday. Tuesday is a Mars. Wednesday is a Mercury. Friday, Thursday is a Jupiter, Friday is Venus, and Saturday is Saturn. Those 7 days are connected with 7 heavenly bodies which we can see very clearly moving in the solar system, and we can be easily defined their movement without any difficulty. So there is uniformity in the west and east on the 7 days, these 7 planets, and that is what I'm trying to show. We should see the concurrence where there is uniformity on mathematical design. Now come to the question of the sun. Now we have from those 7 planets, which I call 7 heavens, we come to the atmosphere, which is also made of the 7 parts. So I'm talking about 7, 7. 7 heavens, 7 days of the week. That's it. Now, atmosphere has also got 7 parts. That means the earth, you have troposphere, tropopause, stratosphere, stratopause, mesosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, this one. In the between, you have ozone, ionosphere, and exosphere. That result, there are 7 parts of the Antariksh. Atmosphere also is identical. Heavens are 7. Atmosphere is also a 7. Now come to the Mother Earth. Other Earth also in a periodic table is made of 7 parts that we call Atal to Patal Lok. That you can see as a lithosphere, upper mantle, troposphere, mesosphere. Then you have outer cave, true and center as such. Here also you have seen same outer layer is Atal and the innermost is Patal. Those things also I've explained very clearly as such. Now we are going to show concept of 22 by 21 of our solar system. I say the earth is made of 7 parts, which is again connected with Ara of the Om. Then Antariksh, atmosphere, is made of 7 parts, is also seen. 7 plus 7 is a 14. And then sphere middle is Yukara. When you say A, right from tailbone right up to soul, that vibrates. And Yukara is the whole body vibrates. And then 7 heavens are the M, Ma, A, U, Ma, head and over things, and then go beyond the solar system to 22. That is what Brahma Inc. is all about. So somewhere in the solar system is very clear, is made of 21 parts. To go beyond is the 22nd part, which is moksha, liberation, freedom, knowledge as such. So first stage of creation is equivalent to 22 by 21. I think is very clear in 7 plus 7 plus 7 alone, which I am trying to show. Now, same thing has been beautifully shown in um, Manduka Upanishad, which has got only 12 verses. But in that, Akara is made of 7 parts, Yukara is made of 7 parts, Makara is made of 7 parts, and to go beyond to come to empty stage between two things, that is Turiya, is 22. Is same 22 here is same. This particular picture I had made in 1974, more than 50 years ago, and this description without even reading what Mandukya Upanishad at that particular stage. That's what I do feel when we are connected with our Atma, soul as such. The soul once starts guiding, that will make you do certain things without you realizing it. But that is soul's way of teaching a human being how to be perfect as such and move on. And this picture is an example which was done by me without getting into spirituality at that particular stage. But I've been connected with my soul since my childhood, maybe even before that. Now to come to the question of understanding concept very clearly. If we want to understand divine mathematics, we got to understand zero. In this particular picture, you can see center zero, the dot, shunya, is what Atma is. When it expands, it becomes like a sun, and also the universe as such. If you look at the sun, inside is 21 parts, it goes around once in 22 years. Again, something which I've spoken about it. I think that also speaks volumes how this divine mathematics playing a role in our day to day. But zero is meant for Atma, the soul, indwelling soul. You can call it Aditi, you can call it Kundalini, you can call it Antratma, you can call it by Prana, you can call it by self, soul, whatever may be. Different people call by it. But I do know divine mathematics start from Shunya, that it goes back to Rigved itself. That's it. Now, Brihad Anika Upanishad, there is a beautiful statement. Purnam adha purnam idham purnam purnam udhishte purnasya purnam adhe purnam eva shishte. That means this is full, that is full, from fullness proceeds fullness. If we take fullness from fullness, the fullness always remains. This is a beautiful example of infinity as well as shunya as such. The whole concept of the divine nature, the formless, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, all perfection is there in this. This also made me realize that there should be divine mathematics, which was realized by ancient Indian sages and Western very clearly. And that should be realized to understand spirituality and science collectively, and that result is in Devyank. The first is Brahmank at 22 by 21. Second is a 10th stage of development, which is Vishnuank. Then 0.34419 is Shiva's Panchbhutas as such, and result is 1.618034. Once Divyank is understood, I think we can understand the whole concept of divinity as such, beautifully moving, and the effect is there in Rigved, and Brihad Upanishad is a translation of Yajurved. That's it. Now come to Atma. the primordial divine soul as such, is very clearly mentioned in Sanatana Dharma that Atma cannot be cut, cannot be burnt, cannot be dissolved, is indestructible, insoluble, integrated, indistinguished, inexhaustible, eternal. All those qualities of Atma are very clearly given. Everything, universe comes from it, everything is maintained by it, everything dissolves into it. That's a beauty which is there in Sanatana Dharma is what? When I convert that into scientific side, above qualities of Atma are found only in noble gases or inert dark matter, particularly helium, neon, argon, krypton, and xenon. These five are the most important. First period, it is helium. Second, it's neon. Third is argon. Fourth is krypton. Fifth is xenon. Those five things also stand out very clearly. And that dark matter cannot be cut, burnt, dissolved as such. It has got the characteristic qualities to maintain itself. That is very beautiful. Having understood that is going to give us a stability of equilibrium. Now there are certain atoms and elements in human body as well as universe is concerned, which also become like the stable inert matter with the same concept. And how they become, because the atoms are converted to ionic form. Either you lose an electron, they gain an electron to become one. Even the molecule stage, you see the same thing. We're going to see a few examples of this. How beautiful is periodic table? How are those atoms which bring the electrical energy and Agni within us are getting converted into ionic form and becoming most powerful elements to move around, because all have to move only ions. And that is what science has done a wonderful thing to give us the thing. But unfortunately, they haven't explained the concept as such. Maybe the scientists knew it the way I have known, but I am trying to explain which they have failed. So that deficiency in divine mathematics is lost because they are converted into man-made concepts. Same thing physics, chemistry, and other sciences. Those deficiencies are removed and share the science in the light of spirituality as a spiritual science to bring the uniformity. Now come to the question of first period. The first Atma, the soul, is helium, which is also called Aditi, the human soul. That is second content of the sun and the universe. First is hydrogen, which is sun. Helium is 4, is from the sun to become human soul. This is a particular picture as such of Aditi, the goddess, which is inner indwelling human soul, and it is made of helium 4, means 2 protons, 2 neutrons, and 2 electrons. As such, this is a beautiful description. Now come to the question Aditi, Aditya, and statement. This is very important statement in Rigved. Rigved says Daksha the king, mother is Aditi and daughter is also Aditi. The concept has not been understood by anybody else. In Upanishad, it is Aditi is the mother, Aditi is the daughter, Aditya the son. This is very clearly much better than Daksha. Daksha, Aditi do not sound, but Aditya, Aditi, Aditi sound very well. And that is very clear in proton-proton nuclear reaction in the sun, where 6,000 degrees concentrate. Now you can see the picture in the sun. 4 atoms of hydrogen are fusing together in the stages to form helium 4. Similarly, helium 4, when division takes place, fusion and fission give you this particular cycle of hydrogen to helium, helium to hydrogen. This goes on. That's the sun's most beautiful part is that the teacher of the world, as our Upanishad is concerned, it is Surya, Aditya. Upanishads are the Vedas are concerned, it is Daksha, again Agni, which is given most important, and that is sun again. I think that is where now spiritual science once understood that our confusion is completely dissolved. Now come to the question of first period. It has got only 2, as you can see in the red light on top. Left side is first one, hydrogen, and right side is helium. But in this both sides, left and right, are first period 2 only. Both are marked red only. That means they are like metals or non-metals. So first 1 and 2 are non-metals, and that's it. What hydrogen and helium stand for, let's try to understand that. Now, hydrogen is the maximum content of the sun in the sun as well as universe is concerned. And there's first atom which cannot be dissolved, which cannot be done. But going underneath it has got own subdivisions, which is again spirituality of dividing into three parts, whether it's electron, protons, and neutrons, or quarks, antiquarks, particle, antiparticle, is same thing which Sanatana Dharma talks about it, and which modern science has also found very clearly. So there is uniformity on that part within the first period, as hydrogen itself is the maximum content in the universe as this, which is starting point for energy as such, Agni Tattva. Now, hydrogen, the first part, is the first non-metal. Hydrogen has the same number of electrons configuration as the alkali metals. Hydrogen is classified as non-metal as its position above the group of the periodic table as in the beginning itself, starting. It differs from other alkali metals in that it contains cations plus more reluctantly than other alkali metals. That shows hydrogen does not become a cation positive as such that easily, reluctant, but can produce. That's the reason when you look at water, H plus OH becomes alkali and acid together to give you neutral, most universal thing. I think that's the amazing part. How cation, which is positive, and anion, which is negative, play a very important role in understanding divine chemistry very clearly. First example is hydrogen. It can become a positive ion. So when it's a positive ion, it is literally like a neon as such, but it is reluctant to become that easily because it needs a very high temperature of maybe 1600 degrees centigrade or 6000 degrees centigrade to convert hydrogen into helium. And I think that's very clearly, I have explained in other videos, it is possible. But you need a high temperature. Where others don't need that high temperature, 37 degree itself is more than enough. That's it. Now come to the questions for greatest. Hydrogen, Aditya Sun, as I told you, is the first element. It can form helium-4 in the sun and is the most monoatomic, lightest element. 70% of ionic mass is hydrogen. Contains one proton, one electron, basic unit of density, and even as I told you in this particular thing, the acid-base balance pH is also based on H plus OH negative. As such, I think once we understand this chemistry of cations and anions, ionic form, only then we can understand periodic table fully. Now come to Rasayan Vidya, the chemistry as such. The knowledge of elements and chemistry is very clearly. And I see what is in periodic tables explained in this particular picture is seen is Sagar Manthan or Samundar Manthan or churning of the ocean, which is a part of the Puranic stories earlier. Now I'm going into Sagar Manthan, the churning of primate ocean, how gods and demons, suras and asuras got together to get Amrit, immortal nectar from the ocean. That means everything is fallen into the sea. Everything is there in the sea. Now they were trying to get from the saline water to Amrit, which I make it very clear they're talking only water, nothing other than that, which has not been explained by anybody else. Because water has got H plus OH and all the qualities which nature required. There is a whole system in the world is talking about is only creativity. For that, most important part is only water. Only in the presence of water action can take place. And I call it water as female 61.8034% in earth, human body, as well as cells as such. I think that's where this is the science which I want the world to understand, and that science should be there for every student throughout the world irrespective which part of the world do they come from. That is the uniform education which I'm talking about, which Akhand Vidyashram is talking about, an impeccable wisdom for the entire universe. Let's start from. Now come to the question, the divine periodic table. As I told you, there are three atoms or elements which are most important. One is hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. Hydrogen is the energy as such, Agni Tattva. Carbon is the one from which all the biological products can come through. Oxygen is the one which gives you the power of fire. Without oxygen, there is no fire at all. That's it. And I have explained why oxygen is required to produce even burning light. The candle in a place covered with water, kept in a water and covered with an empty glass. As long oxygen is there, it burns. After oxygen is consumed, it stops burning. And that's beautiful. Those are three elements which are most important. But then helium is the first soul consciousness, I've already explained. Then three inorganic molecules, which are very important ones, with which the nature designed the whole divine chemistry, is methane, CH4, which has got 10 protons. The water, HOH, also got 10 protons. And carbon dioxide has got 22 protons. Now you finally come back to Divyank again. Carbon dioxide is 22. Methane and water have 10-10. You're going to see the beauty in divine chemistry so that we understand how the nature has unfolded its secret as the atoms, elements, molecules, compounds, cells, and thereafter. Everything is with Divyang. Once Divyang is understood, chemistry is understood, we'll understand spirituality, world will have a very clear idea, no confusion at all. Now the modern science, a lot of concepts which have not been explained. We need to explain to every student the concept clearly in divine mathematics as such. That is the process here. Now, second group is oxygen and carbon, these two stand out. Let's make it very clear. So the three important parts, as I told you, the molecules of hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon, you are going to see about it. That is what carbon and hydrogen is methane, hydrogen and oxygen is water, and carbon and oxygen, carbon dioxide. These three are the only one which produce that. So these three are very, very important. Hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen as such are the first fundamental wisdoms, geniuses. Now come to the question of third particle, which is oxygen. I call it Agni, the fire element. As I told you, the experiment says very clearly it's the eighth element, and eighth element has a non-metal, and it is abundance as well as third greatest: hydrogen, helium, and then oxygen. And this is required in the body, and even atmosphere contains 21% oxygen. It's a 40% in ATP, and all what is energy required, it's around oxygen only. So I think having understood hydrogen, helium, and oxygen, let's understand. Let's now move on to the next one. Now, when I think of oxygen, I always converted it to goddess Durga, which has 8 Bhujashtari. That means it is talking about oxygen is Agni element. Whosoever to understand this aspect of Durga, for which she was created, is show that we are talking about oxygen, how important Agni is important. If you look into Rig Veda, the thing which is most important is Agni alone. Maximum concentration given on Agni, and I relate it with goddess Durga or Mata Vaishno Devi. She is my teacher who has been teaching me since my young days. That's it. Now, I'm bringing another picture of mine, my EEG electroencephalograph brain. I think I'm the only person in the world who has produced 8 hertz alpha throughout my brain with open eyes, which no one in the world. When you look at the neuroscientists, they say 10.5 hertz alpha frequency from posterior brain when the mind is at rest, eyes are closed, but rest of brain does not show. But I'm produced 8 hertz throughout the brain with the open eyes, and that's beauty. And I can tell you, when you are in tune with universal consciousness, only then you can do that to understand Akash Kosh as such. And once you do that, you become a part of the universal consciousness. This is a great example of Ashtabhujadhari Durga, or my head brain is exactly like Durga. As a result, as she is my teacher, I'm able to understand her, and we move on to understand the universe completely as such. Then come to the fourth greatest element is carbon for organic life. And it's got 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. And it's this intertetravalent non-metal compound. It can form the maximum number of elements, most common in the human body, contains 18.5% in the body, essential part of biological life. Biological life cannot be without carbon. As a matter of fact, the burnt carbon is used as the vibhuti of Lord Shiva itself. That's why it's called Shiva is the beginning and the end. That's it. And you're going to see that. Then second, this is also something which gives you carbon dioxide along with oxygen. Carbon plus oxygen is carbon dioxide, and that is again 22 protons. So now, in that kind of knowledge only you can see how divine mathematics is helping me understand the concept very clearly. But here you have 6. For that matter, Kekule's benzene ring with 6 carbons, as also was seen in a dream, and I hats up to him. He has also seen with the divine as such, because it revealed itself in the sun, head biting the tail, and then giving 6 carbon picture of benzene ring is a beautiful example of same carbon's role as such. Now come to the question of methane. Carbon in this 6 plus 4H is again 10 protons, and that's what shows that all the stages of development would have 10 points, which I understand. If Divyank Brahmank, first stage of creation is 22/10, then Vishnu Ank is 10 stages of development, which is also mandatory all over. And you can see that in methane itself, you can see in water itself. Those are 10 stages of development are seen that you're going to see as we move on. And that's it. Now come to the question of water. You can see oxygen, the 8 and 2 of hydrogen put together are 10 only. When they're far, they're separated. When they come together, they form water molecule as such. And this is when I say the water is the Amrit. Water is the most important part of the solar, the whole earth, 61.803%. Same thing with the human body as well as the human cells. Once we understand that, everything is done. And it's a water which maintains the action very clear. Without water, there's no biological race at all. So 61.80 is the water role. That's what is we see in many places, including Nernst equation, the log of 61, which should have been 61.8034%. We are trying to rectify even some of the great thinkings of the scientists, but deficient because the mathematical base itself is not divine, man-made concept. Now we, in the divine mathematics, will be able to see and rectify all the defects which are required. So that way, water becomes a perfect thing, including acid-base balance. Now, this particular picture, I brought it personally to show which a water is taken from atmosphere by the cell photosynthesis to produce oxygen. So oxygen is produced from water alone. So there is a connection of oxygen and water as such. Hydrogen and oxygen give you oxygen also for atmosphere, and that's where whole plant kingdom has converted 97% carbon dioxide, which was there before biological life started, into 21% oxygen as such. Water was converted and carbon was converted into sugar. That's it. And I have made it very clear, whether it's Mercury, Venus, Earth, or Mars, all the 4 of them, inner core planets, had 97% carbon dioxide only, which is 22. Carbon dioxide is converted into sugar, and water is converted into oxygen. That is the transformation which we have seen from Earth into atmosphere as such. Now come to the question of carbon dioxide. how this was formed in the beginning stage again, methane, CH4 10 plus oxygen of 2 put together form carbon dioxide and water. And this is what I said the whole thing started with. Carbon dioxide plus 2 water molecules is 22 protons again. 6 plus 8 plus plate 22. And that is because given, as I told you, Mercury, Venus, Mars along with Earth had 97%, and this 97% of Earth has converted into oxygen 21% now. That is the kind of knowledge which every student should have, so the person has nothing to think about it, so they can go to the next stage of research in a much better manner. Since our basic knowledge is deficient, our research is also deficient, and results are also deficient. To convey the uniformity, let's have the foundation knowledge of impeccable wisdom, which Akhand Vidyashri is talking about for the first time in the history of mankind. We got to bridge that within science and spirituality. That's it. Now to come to the glucose synthesis. When the plants do, you can see there are only 7 stages again. You can see very clearly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and how 6 carbon dioxide plus 6 of water can convert it into glucose as such within the plant kingdom, and how carbon dioxide plus water put together is producing glucose plus oxygen again, which has converted carbon dioxide 97% to 21% oxygen, and carbon dioxide is minimum, and remaining is converted to nitrogen 78%. I think that is again a beautiful thing, how carbon dioxide is converted to oxygen and nitrogen as such. Now come to question of synthesis of fatty acids, the second part after glucose. And here, how this is formed, I have put it together. And finally, how triglycerides are formed, how they become the source for fat as such. Let's understand why I'm talking about it. Now again, fatty acid in the human cells produce more ATP, like carbon dioxide, carbohydrates, and proteins. One can 4 kilocalories, but fatty acids can produce 9 kilocalories, 2.25 times more. Why? Again, because the oxygen again. That is what it is. That is how oxygen plays very important role. Beta oxidation process produces 10 stages as such in this particular process. From glucose you had 10 stages, and fatty acids also you can see 10 stages. Now come to the question of second group of elements, hydrogen, oxygen, carbon and nitrogen. Now in this particular thing, synthesis of nitrogen is carbon plus hydrogen is equal to nitrogen. Volcanic activity releases water, and that is what oxygen is all about. But nitrogen is formed from the union of carbon plus hydrogen alone, and it becomes the building block for amino acids and proteins, which gives us the structure to do our work much better. And that's it. Now amino acid synthesis, I've spoken about it. This is also of 10 stages. Like glucose goes through the 10 stages, so the amino acids also go through the 7 stages. Even fatty acids also go through the 10 stages. Now the 3 groups are formed. First 3 groups of elements, hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen and phosphorus. How they play an important role in divine chemistry. Now come to the energy molecules. You find all the 5 of them play important role in forming ATP, adenosine monophosphate, adenosine diphosphate, adenosine triphosphate. In all the 5 play important role to produce. There is a uniqueness in this which I want you to read at leisurely, which I have already explained. Here again we'll repeat it. You can read it leisurely as you move on. But I'm also talking about to come to the DNA structure, which is important in plant kingdom and human being. Based on deviance, the design of double helix is 1,000 times better than the one designed by Watson and Crick, for which they got a Nobel Prize in 1953. But that is the clarity which I am bringing. But the beauty is brought out together in this particular picture based on Divyang is much better when the width is 21 angstrom and each spiral is 22 and 10.344 are the strands as such. Same thing I have explained. The width is 21, strand is 22, number of strands is 10.34, height is this much, minor group 12, major group 22, and two sugar things opposing 3 and 3 carbon. All the beauty which you can see, adenine and thymine is one group, guanine and cytosine is another group, and binding of two hydrogen and 3 hydrogen is an amazing thing. As you can see in this particular picture, the number of protons in adenine and thymine combination, the first line is 136. Second line of cytosine and guanine also is 136. Isn't it amazing how protons play so important roles in thing. Same 5C and 6C is also same thing. Even the bonds between 2 and 3 also in Divyang. See, now you can see how Divyang is actually bringing the wisdom to the world without any confusion whatsoever. That's it. Now come to the question of the periodic table of second inert matter with 10 electrons, which is neon 21. First, it is what is called helium 4, which is Aditi. The second one is neon, and I would put neon 21 so that you have 10 protons, 10 electrons and 11 neutrons. Play a very important role. Entire universe was created from neon 21 mixing together to form neon 22 and then going through 10 stages, as again Divyang is seen very clearly in divine mathematics of the system of forming the universe itself very clearly. So neon 21 is the one which I'm talking about, which should be 10 electrons, 10 protons, 11 neutrons as such. It's very commonly available, including electronic. And same thing is seen in goddess Gayatri, which is the second divine mother. If Aditi is the first one, this is second one. And I put Durga as the one who is a physicalized body. These are the divinities as such. That's also, let's make it. But here you have 10 arms. That means it has got 10 electrons as such. Now, spiral galaxy as such, expanding is done with the 10 suns, as you can see in this picture, only from goddess Gayatri as such. Once we understand the principle of spirituality of 10 stages of development, only then we can understand the divine thing very clearly, because that is applied everywhere, the same thing, uniformity. Now comes the question of 10 stages of glucose, which I'm talking about, which I said in the beginning, from glucose to lactic acid or pyruvic acid, and pyruvic acid to glucose again. Both the side you have 10 stages alone. Once you understand this picture, you know there are 10 stages of development, and that is what Vishnu Ank is all about. Once that is understood very clearly, you will understand the Brahma Ank, the first stage of creation is 22 by 21. Then 10 stage development is very clear here. I write up to this particular picture. As such, we have not come to Shivank at all. Now come to the question of 18 protons. We have talked about 2, we have talked about 10. Now we are going to electron. Electron is third inert matter, which is argon 40. And I am making it 40 because you will have 18 electrons, 18 protons plus 22 neutrons. This is also a very vital part for making the universe as such. Once we understand that, we will understand the science of periodic table, and spirituality is one, how the world share that knowledge. As I would say, Akhand Bharat has given this kind of knowledge in Ved, Upanishad, other scriptures, but at the same time, they also gave the same thing in a graphic presentation of yantras and murtis as such, idols. I think they speak volumes. It's not ideal of something, this ideal of nature as such. It's not criticizing God is formless, you cannot see. But these forms are there, which modern science is recognizing. Same thing was done by Sanatana Dharma even from the very beginning itself. And that is what I'm trying to show. There's nothing wrong in having idols and statues as long as they're teaching us the perfection as such. And that is one thing which I'm making it very clear. Let's take these pictures. Let's take the knowledge. Only when put together we can understand the concept clearly. Otherwise, very difficult. You need 2, 3, or 10 dimensions to understand concept very clearly, whereby all the doubts could be removed. That's it. Now, Adi Prashakti, this particular picture has got 18 names and I call it organ 40 only. But is it a coincidence that ancient statue, I don't know how many uh, century old this particular statue is, but you see the arms are only 18, 9 plus 9 alone. And you can see the whole picture very clearly how it's trying to do as a mother creation. Adi means first, Para is absolute creation. The greatest creation is Adi Prashakti, from which the whole universe has come. If solar system and spiral galaxies come from Gayatri, the entire Mahabrahmand is from Adi Prashakti of 18. And same thing you are seeing in periodic table, same thing you are seeing in spirituality. Now second person, next Natarajan, which is Agni Tattva again. You see the flames around the statue. This is statue I have at home, and that's the picture from there. You can see 18 flames alone, not anything other than that. Outside you can see 8 on one side, 8 on other side, 1 on top, and 1 of the hand as such. Again 8 like Durga, 8 Durga, again Mahakali, and 1 light going up, 1 into the hand to show why this 18 alone. And that is what I want to show the world. Even Nataraja statue should have only 18 Agni Tattva only. Not more than that, the way you see in many of the things which are defective. And we want to reduce that also from the pictures and statues, bring the uniformity as such. Even I know when I look at Mahabharat, 4 horses. I don't agree. It should be 5 horses. I've also corrected. So similarly, I'm trying to show only those things which make sense to me, not the one which does not make sense, because colors have to give me sense, number has to give me sense. It should have a uniformity as such. This is the picture along with Adi Prashakti. Now I'm going to give you another picture which is of Mahakali, a Chamundeshwari. But in Chamundeshwari thing again is a form of Durga which was formed from the third eye of goddess Durga to kill Chanda, Munda, Raktavij and others to finish those asuras. And in that case, she has got 18 arms again. That shows when power is manifested into that part, only then you become like Shiva and Shakti as such. And that is what it means. The gentle form is in Durga, but dynamic form is there in Mahakali as such with 18 names. I think speaks volumes, and that is what it gives you moksha, the freedom from all the deficiency. She is trying to kill even asuras and give them the freedom not to do the same mistake again. That's why Mahakali comes at the third level in Shiva and thing as a moksha, and that is 0.34419, or you have particular thing. I think that is amazing, the way we have come to this particular stage of understanding the pictures of God. And in this picture you can see right at the behind of the head the sun background. I think is another, speaks volumes about the concept. And it is dark, mean it's inert matter of the highest nature. Again, inert matter is, unless it is charged, it's dark. I have already explained about it. Now come to the Divine Mother. Adi Parashakti is the one which actually created Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh, all the three from itself. That is the universal creator. That is Adi Mother Parashakti as a creatrix for Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh and all the beings of the universe, all the mathematical concepts. When I talk of Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh, I do not call them as human beings. But every human being has Brahma within, Vishnu within, Shiva within. But concept-wise, they are three separate. First stage of creation, 10th stage of development, and last stage. As such is the concept which Adi Prashakti give you the knowledge as such. which is 22 by 21 to the power of 10, 0.34419. That's it. Now coming to the periodic table, in that particular picture which I'm talking about is atom size reduced from left to the right as such, and from top to the bottom as the picture written in the middle part. So the concept is it's the electrons which in hydrogen is moving out. So it gives you that we say 22 by 21. But when number of electron increases along with the protons and neutrons, the size of atom and element starts reducing is what it is all about. But similarly, from top to bottom, its size increases because the number of protons are increasing, number of electrons are increasing. But from active to stable with so-called inert matter, size is smaller. So inert matter is smaller than the left side atoms. That's it. Now, I'm going to tell you something which I'm not going to put a picture. I want you to listen to me very clearly so that you understand something which I mentioned in the beginning. Look at this particular picture. You can see hydrogen and helium put together. The hydrogen is larger, helium is smaller, is first stage. Then you got lithium, boron, and then you have other things. But when it comes to the neon size, it's smaller than you have a lithium. But right up to this, you have taken hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen as such through production of five things. But when it comes to the next one, phosphorus is taken that for energy as well as ATP. But now comes the question for atoms which are very important role to play. But if you go to third one, you can see sodium with 11 electrons, which can give 1 and become 10, like neon. So ionic form of sodium becomes very powerful when it comes to the question of extracellular and intracellular process. Extracellular, it is neon. But as far as intracellular is the next line of potassium, where you have 19 becomes like 18. And same thing, calcium 20 can also become like 18. And as far as magnesium is concerned, can become like 10. On the other side, fluoride can become ionic form as a neon. Then chloride from 17 can become 18. And bromide from can become 7. But what is most important is the first 53rd element, which is iodine, becomes iodine 53 to ionic form like xenon 54. And because I've experienced all that within my physical body, I'm able to explain thing. When you talk of Nilkant, you are talking of iodine and how iodine plays an important role in thyroid formation, how 53 has become into 54 ionic form, and this. So understanding that ionic form is more dynamic than atomic elemental form, they are inactive. But in ionic form, they become, that is only when on oxygen, one electron is given or taken to make it more stable. I think once you understand that, you'll understand divine chemistry much better than as it is today. I have explained that in different stages. In one video, you can't convert the whole thing because you will need thousands and thousands of hours of lectures to bring uniformity in the world. I think for that point, I think periodic table's real beauty as such, I think I explained, which is vital, most important, knowing which we can bring the change within ourselves so that we can be healthy, wealthy, wise, and happy. You can reverse aging and become a perfect human being also as we grow older. With more and more perfect knowledge we have, and we start using it with the help food itself. As we grow older, we can become much more dynamic. I see the change within me. In the last 30 years, instead of growing older with age, I have grown younger by age. And 40 years and today, in my features, there's not much of a difference. Instead of increasing, I think I've improved. And that can be done only with divine chemistry, provided you understand periodic as such. And now coming to the last picture is that I'm not going to talk about it. I think what we are given in this is more than enough for the world to understand. Periodic table is spirituality and science put together with a clarity so that we can be healthy, wealthy, wise, and happy. I think that's enough for the day. Thank you very much.